Peace and blessings. I thought of something else I wanted to build on too. I think late last week, I did a video for North End Agent where I was building on the death of Nipsey Hussle, and I brought up something that I realized in my studies and my meditations. In ancient African spirituality, we talked about the ancestral realm, right? And in the spiritual system of Ifa, there is a story about how man came into being. There's a story where there were three guys, the original Holy Trinity of Oludumare, who was the creator. It was Olorun, who was the ruler of the heavens, and Obatala, who was the creator of man. When Obatala wanted to come to earth to create man, he was told to use a golden chain that connected the heavens to the earth. He had to climb down this golden chain. And there was one person who wrote a book called Grasping the Root of Divine Knowledge, I believe it's called. And he talked about how that golden chain that connected heaven to earth was actually a symbol for the DNA. The same way you have a helix in your DNA that spirals and it looks kind of like a chain, that is the divine chain that connects you to the spirit realm or to heaven. So your spirit realm is your DNA. That is the place where your ancestors dwell. Of course, we dwell in a multi-dimensional essence, in a multi-dimensional form. So that means that just the term spirit realm, quote unquote, can have multiple meanings simultaneously because we exist on multiple dimensions. Even inside your brain is an 11-dimensional working apparatus. So there's multiple dimensions upon which we live. Your thoughts exist in multiple dimensions. Your body exists in multiple dimensions. Just because we inhabit three-dimensional space don't mean that we don't inhabit multiple dimensions simultaneously. So the spirit realm could mean one thing, but it also means your DNA. Your ancestors dwell in your DNA. And what we call instinct, when you put in a situation that you've never been in before, but you know how to handle it, when you are placed in a situation that you have never seen before, you're dealing with things you never had to deal with before, somehow your body and your mind move as one, and without you consciously knowing it, you tapped into your ancestral memory. They call that an instinct. But it's not just an instinct. What it is accidentally, because it happens accidentally quite often, accidentally you tapped into the memory of your ancestors. You tapped into the spirit realm. You tapped into the DNA, and in your DNA there is memory. Your ancestors put memories in your DNA so that you can handle situations that you come across when we operate within this three-dimensional paradigm. But think about who our ancestors are. Go all the way back, and throughout the course of human history, your ancestors wrote in the book of life. The book of life, that's your DNA. They wrote in the book of life things that you needed to know to be able to survive what was coming up next. So what we're talking about is not only the data in your DNA that was given to you by your ancestors, but how far back does DNA go? Because the history of the whole human race is in your DNA. All the wars, all the pain, all the death, all the Holocaust, the trauma, all of it is written in your DNA. The blessings, the building of civilizations, the decay of civilizations, the movement and migration from one place in the world to another place in the world, all of that is in your DNA. Your face is the book of life. The whole history of the human race is in your face. It's in your body language. It's in your walk. It's in the way you talk. It's in your blood. It's even in your language, the way you speak, the way you communicate. The cadences in your voice. You'll notice that when you go to certain places, there's a different inflection and different cadences in the way we use words, the way we accentuate certain things, our accent. All of that is genetic memory coming out. So that the whole history of the human race is in those things. It's embodied in those things. We call these things culture. But our whole history is in these things. But how far back does human history go? See, when I talk about tapping into the inner God, I'm talking about your DNA in which the genetic memory is written. And our genetic memory goes all the way back to the beginning of creation. Our genetic memory is not just something that we share between other human beings. It's something that we share with the very forces of nature. And whatever you call a force of nature, that is the creative force of nature. Whatever you call it, whether you call it the divine father, the divine mother, whether you call it the Big Bang, whether you call it, by scientific principles, essentially what you're talking about is this thing that we call God. Your DNA, in your DNA, is the history of not only the human race, not only the history of the planet, but the history of the universe itself, going all the way back to the creative moment. The creative moment that they call the first occasion, where the forces of nature that we call God and embody as God, whether we call them Eurisha, or whether we call them Netters, or whether we call it Yahweh Shah, whether we call it Allah. The first occasion is that moment where this creative force and this creative potential in the universe became crystallized in the form of the divine masculine and the divine feminine that we call human beings. Your DNA goes all the way back to that. Our ancestor is the supreme being of the universe. Our ancestor is God. So you got to remember that locked in your DNA is the secrets of that power. The secrets of God is inside of you. So when I talk about meditating and tapping into your divine self, that's what I'm talking about. And we have those moments. I mentioned earlier that sometimes you tap into your genetic memory by accident, just by being in the right place at the right time, drinking the right amount of water. Sometimes you might sit down and go through a certain ritual without even realize that's what you're doing. You might walk into a room and walk in a circle and sit down and close your eyes and not even realizing that you just performed a ritual. And then you tap into your genetic memory and all of a sudden something comes over you. That happened to me a lot when I was a kid. This weird feeling would come over me. I felt like a divine love was blossoming inside me. I can't even put it into words. But somehow, some way, I had accidentally tapped into the power in my DNA that connected me all the way back to the spirit of the Supreme. So when I talk to you very seriously about tapping into the divine self, I'm talking to you about spirituality, of course, but it's science. It's science that we're talking about here. We talk about spiritual science, and people try to make it seem as if spirituality and science are always in conflict. Nah, because real spirituality is scientific. And we might draw different conclusions, we might use different terminology, but essentially at the end of the day, tapping into the God self is a very true thing. It's a very real thing. That's why I speak about it so passionately. I get intense when I talk about tapping into the divine self, because all of us have the seed of the divine within us. That seed must be nurtured. It must be watered. How do you water it? With positive thoughts and positive thinking, positive influence, proper diet. And you also water it through meditation and through self-examination. You water it through mindfulness. That is the way you tap into the God self, the divine self that's within you. And I don't want you to get scared, because so many people are taught to believe that God is up there. But when you hear that God is within you, or God is a universal essence that's pervasive, everybody want to get scared and get spooked out by that. I don't want you to get spooked out by that. When I say that you have a God self within you, I'm not going against nobody's religious beliefs. You tell me where somehow, some way, I'm going against your religious beliefs by telling you that God is within you. When in the Bible it talks about us being a temple for the Spirit of God. It talks about us being the house of God. So how am I going against your religious beliefs? They call this right here your temple. Why do they call that? Because the brain itself has a part of it that gets activated when you tap into the God self, and God can dwell in you when you activate it. They call that the pineal gland of the third eye. Once you activate that, it changes everything. It allows a new energy to flow through your body. So how am I going against your religion when it's in your Bible? How am I going against your religion when it's in your Quran? When Allah created man in the Quran, He told all the angels to bow down. How am I going against your religion? It's in Urisha. You know what I mean? It's in the Ifa religion where it talks about how there is a God that lives in your mind called the Ori. And the Ori grants all of your wishes. He's a God living right within your consciousness. And this is called the temple. Your body is called the temple of God. So how am I going against your religion? Don't get spooked out. Don't get scared. When we start talking about that God self, don't get nervous about that. We're talking about something very scientific, and it's not contradicting your religion. Because if your religion is scientific and your religion is based on reality, then you on the same page as us. Regardless of what, don't be afraid. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid that your religion is going to contradict your spirituality. If your religion contradicts your spirituality, then one of them got to go. And hopefully your spiritual connection to the Supreme ain't what you choose to get rid of. Connect with your spiritual force. Connect with the God inside yourself. And if you're a part of a religion that's not teaching you how to connect to the God inside yourself, it needs to be adjusted. Your religion should be teaching you how to overcome all obstacles, even the obstacles within yourself, and tap into the God within. If your religion can't provide you with that, then you got to seek out a new religion. But anyhow, I just wanted to give y'all that information real quick, because it overcame me when I was walking at my job. I had to take a moment just to come here and build on that real fast. But I'm going to talk to y'all again later on. Peace and blessings. See y'all later.